All right, good morning. I'm going to get started here. So, welcome. First off, I want to say happy Earth Day and also happy anniversary to New York State DEC. Today is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day in New York, and it's also the 50th anniversary of the Department of Environmental Conservation. So, happy anniversary. So my name is Katrina Talbot. I am a wildlife biologist with DEC's Hunter Education Program. I work out of central office in Albany, and you're joining me from my backyard in Knox. So as I mentioned before, it's pretty windy out today. So if at any point you can't hear me, please write that in the comments and I will either speak up or try to move this show inside. But it's actually pretty nice out, so I'd like to keep doing this outside. So what I'm going to be doing today is teaching you about game cameras, also known as trail cameras, and how you can use those to learn about wildlife and watch wildlife as a fun activity from home. So while we're all staying home right now during this crisis and we are responsibly and safely socially distancing, DEC is trying to help you stay connected with each other, stay connected with us, and also stay connected with your environment. So game cameras are a really great way for you and your partner and your family to all learn about wildlife and what's going on around your house. It's really easy. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take any skill pretty much. So it's a really, really fun starting activity to help teach your kids about nature. So I'm just going to run through some of the basics here with you. So generally when people think about trail cameras and game cameras, they think about the fact that they're used for hunting. And that's true. They are a really great tool for patterning in wildlife behavior, tracking wildlife's movements throughout the season. And it's a really great tool for hunters to use. But it's also a really, really great method for people to just watch how wildlife behaves naturally when nobody is looking. So it's really a cool activity for anybody. As wildlife biologists, we also use trail cameras for research. Currently, DEC is doing a multi-year study throughout central and western New York where we set up game cameras and we're tracking the presence and movement of fisher populations. So, as you can see, I live right on the edge of the woods here in Knox. I have quite a bit of land here, but that doesn't mean that you need a lot of land or access to a lot of land to enjoy using game cameras. You can set them up in your yard. You can set them up on your garden, on your bird feeder and bird bath, even on your trash to see if you have a nuisance animal that's getting in there and you're not quite sure what it is. You can set these up, and in your garden, if something is chewing on your lettuce and you're not sure if it's a groundhog or a rabbit, you can set these up and it's really cool to see what comes through. You'd be amazed to see, just even in your suburban yard, how much wildlife is walking through, especially at night when they think no one is around. So it's a really, really fun tool to use. So let's start with the super basics. This is a game camera. So they're generally, I have one behind me here set up on a tree, and I'm going to be showing you this one as well. So there's a wide range of game cameras. They have all different colors of camo. You can see this is a winter camo. This is a green camo one. It doesn't really matter what it looks like. It'll blend in as long as it has some sort of pattern on it. So the first thing you want to consider when you're shopping for a game camera, if you don't already have one, is whether it's infrared or incandescent. So the big difference there is that incandescent cameras have a flash. So they have a slower shutter speed and they take higher quality photos. So if you're looking for really good wildlife photos that you want to use in the future, you maybe want to look into getting an incandescent camera. The downside to getting an incandescent flash camera is that it generally spooks wildlife because, especially at night, a flash bulb is going off and that gets their attention and can often spook them. What my cameras have and what we use mostly for wildlife research is infrared cameras. So that means that there's no flash when these go off. They have a really fast trigger speed and a fast shutter speed. So they're really good for getting pictures of wildlife while it's moving. Your photo quality is not going to be quite as good as with an incandescent camera, but they're still going to be pretty good. And I'll be showing you some examples here in a little bit of great photos that I've gotten with infrared cameras. So it all depends on what you're looking for, what you're trying to do here. And if we're just starting off with basic, you just want to have some fun and learn about what's in your yard and what's around your house, you can go with a simple camera, a simple infrared camera, and you're really going to enjoy your results. You also want to consider if you're looking for photos or videos. While videos are really, really cool to watch, they often take up a lot of your memory space on your memory card. They eat up your battery life, and it can be pretty tedious sometimes to go through a lot of videos, especially if they've been tracking for a while. So just think about that if you're looking for photos or videos. Some cameras can take photos, some take videos, some take only black and white photos, some take color. So these are all things you want to consider. Something else you want to look at is photo quality. So there's a wide range, just like with all camera equipment, there's a wide range of photo quality. So it ranges generally from 2 megapixels to over 20. So the quality of a photograph is measured in megapixels. The higher the number of megapixels, the higher quality your photo will be. We do recommend, it is generally recommended that if you want really high quality nighttime photos, that you don't get anything under 10 megapixels. If you get under 10 megapixels, you'll generally have a little bit grainier photos. They will be black and white, and they're just going to be harder to tell. They won't be like really high quality photos. So that's just something to consider also. You also want to think about your field of view, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is how much of an area is within the photo frame of the camera that you're taking. So some of them will have multiple sensors like this one. Some of them have a singular sensor. And that just depends on the spot that you're choosing and what you're trying to get pictures of. So if you're setting it up on just like your garden or your yard, you can have a pretty small field of view in there. If you have a big food plot for deer, or you have a big field or a crop that you're trying to get a really wide angle on, you want to make sure you get a camera that's set up for a good wide field of view. Another thing is that, like I said before, with all cameras, the quality or the how fancy it is ranges a lot, and that ranges with price. There's a huge price range here. So if you can get them really basic. So on the inside of every game camera, when you open it up, this is what you're going to see. There's going to be a lot of controls in there. It tells you your battery life. Some of them just have the controls and they're basic. Some, like this camera here, have a viewing screen, so that when you go out into the woods to check your camera, you can scroll through, and if you don't have anything good on there that's worth keeping, you can go ahead and delete those photos without ever switching out your memory card. It's kind of convenient. But if you're just starting with the basics, you don't need that. You just always want to make sure you buy at least 2 memory cards. You want to be able to switch that card out when you're going to check your camera. And if you're anything like me, when you stick it in your pocket and you hike back, you'll probably drop it and lose it. So you'll want a couple extra ones on hand, just in case. So cameras are advancing every year, and there's a lot of really cool things coming out. Now there are ones that are Wi-Fi and network capable. So if you're sitting on your couch watching TV, or you're at work, or you're out doing anything else, you can get pinged with a text message or an email from your camera. As soon as the trigger goes off and it gets a photo, it'll send that photo right to you. But again, it all depends on what you're looking for here. So now that we picked out a camera, when it comes to buying cameras too, if you don't already have one, pretty much any outdoor retailer sells them. So you could easily shop around online right now, read the reviews, try to find reviews from people who are looking for the same sort of project that you are with the camera, and then that'll help inform your decision on which one you want to buy. But you can get them online right now from any outdoor retailer. They usually have a wide variety of options. You could get one sent to your house. You never have to leave your house to do this project. So now that we have a camera, we're going to think about location. So there's some really important things you want to consider when scouting out a location. You will want to go out and do a little bit of scouting to figure out the ideal spot to set up your camera. This can be a really fun activity, either by yourself, with your partner, with your family, with your kids, you can go around looking for tracks of wildlife, looking for scat, which is the scientific term for poop. You can look for really good natural food sources like piles of acorns or piles of beech nuts or good fruiting trees, and set up a camera where you think wildlife will be. A pretty safe spot to set up a game camera is always a good game trail. So when we say a game trail, that just means a really high trafficked path through the woods or through a field that you know wasn't made by people. Animals are a lot like us, and they'll take the path of least resistance whenever possible. So they usually travel the same route a lot, and it'll be pretty well worn down. So if you find one of those game trails in the woods and you set up a camera, you're pretty likely to get a shot of some sort of wildlife at some point. So some other good spots to consider when setting up a game camera would be access to water. So all wildlife needs water, and sometimes you can find a really good funnel or a pinch point that leads into that. So there may be really thick brush along a creek bed, but then it opens up at one small spot. That would be a great place to put your camera because you know that they'll be accessing it. Again, if you decide to, if you have a food plot and you want to see what's coming into your food plot, like if you have clover or wheat or any sort of big crop that you're trying to watch, you can set it up there as well. Especially on the edge of the woods, you know that they'll be coming and going from there, and you have a pretty good chance of catching something that way. So, excuse me. If you've done your job with scouting and you've looked for a good spot and you think you see a lot of wildlife sign, you don't need to use any sort of attractant or artificial means to get the wildlife to come to you. And if you think about it, your whole goal is to see what wildlife is doing when you're not there. So you don't want to influence them by putting out any sort of bait or any sort of food source. We never want to feed wildlife. Wildlife doesn't need us to feed them. They're doing just fine. And it's also unsafe. Our foods that we eat are not really safe for wildlife. Feeding wildlife tends to encourage grouping of animals, and that helps spread disease. So we just never want to have animals feel reliant on people for food. So if you've done your job and you've done some good scouting and you've found a good spot, you shouldn't need to put any sort of attractant out to get wildlife near your camera. If you do want to put out some sort of scent to get animals interested in it, you could always look for trapping lures. So trapping lures are natural formulated scents that trappers use to attract wildlife. And there are smells that are found in nature. They're super stinky, so make sure you wear gloves when you are putting it out. And that could attract some wildlife just to come check it out and see what's there. So now let's talk about setting up your game camera. So you found a really good spot on a trail and you have your camera and you're ready to go. Well, you always want to remember, if you're setting it up like this one on the tree here, you want to make sure it's in a north-facing direction if possible. Having it in a north-facing direction will help cut down on the chances that you'll get really bright, overexposed, washed out photos. If you have it facing south, you're going to get a lot of really overexposed, white looking photos, and it'll be pretty frustrating. It'll be hard to see what's in those shots. You also want to avoid having it facing east to west because you'll get a lot of photos of the sun rising and the sun setting. And going through your computer and checking through and deleting hundreds of photos of the sunrise and the sunset and no animals is pretty annoying as well. So try to pick a north face direction. You always want to have your camera at a 45-degree angle if possible to the spot that you're trying to get photos of on the trail. So if you have the camera set up straight on like this, and this is your field of view, you're only going to get photos of wildlife when it's right in front of the camera. So what you're going to end up seeing is a lot of partial shots. So you're going to get the rump of a fox, the nose of a deer, maybe something in motion that's really blurry, and you're not going to be very happy with the pictures. If you have it set up at a 45-degree angle, you'll be able to get better photos of the animals while they're coming and going, and hopefully get more full, higher quality shots. So north-facing direction, 45-degree angle. You also want to make sure that you bring some loppers or trimmers out, and you get rid of any brush, hanging limbs, sticks, or grass that's going to be in the field of view. So you should stand either right next to the camera or behind the tree and see what exactly the field of view is for your camera. Because if it's a really windy day like today and there's one stick hanging and it's blowing back and forth, that's going to set off the motion detector on the camera, and you're going to get hundreds of photos of just brush waving. So you just want to make sure that there's never anything in the way. You want the camera to be set about 3 to 4 feet up into the tree or on the pole, whatever you're setting it on. You want to make sure that it's angled so that you can catch the ground, so you can catch any small animals that are running by. You also want it to be facing up enough that you could get taller animals like bear or deer. If you have it too low or too close to the trail, you're going to get just a lot of pictures of fur and you're not really going to know what it is. So you want to be about 15 to 20 feet from the spot that you're trying to get photos of. Another really good helpful tip is that it's always great to have something of known size in the photograph for scale. So say you're setting it up on a trail and there's a tree right across from your camera. It would be helpful to put a stick that you've measured the size of sticking out of the ground over there, or mark the tree a little bit so that you can see exactly how high that is. When you get photos of wildlife and it's just that animal in the frame, it tends to look huge. Everything looks bigger, and it's really hard to get perspective and tell exactly the size of an animal in a photo unless you have something in that frame of known proportion. So that's a really, really helpful tip, especially if you get an animal in there that you're not sure what it is and you're trying to look it up. If you have that way to measure it, it'll be really, really helpful. So you can also set up your game camera, like I said, in a big field or a big open space if you want to get a really wide angle view of everything that's there. You can simply put up a T-post, a metal T-post in the ground and strap your camera to it. They all have these straps on them, and you can also add bungees, whatever it takes, zip ties. Or you can even just take a really sturdy stick and stick it in the ground. You can also set up, if you don't have a lot of property, you could set up on public land. If you plan on hunting public land, or if you just like to recreate a lot in an area and you want to know what's out there, you're welcome to put up game cameras on public land. You just always want to make sure that when you purchase your game camera, you buy a locking box that camera fits into. You buy a locking cable lock to strap it to the tree so that no one could take it. And it's also really helpful to put a sticker or a label on your camera with your name and phone number, just in case someone comes across it and wonders what it is and why it's there. That way they can contact you. So now that so if you don't have a lot of land and you don't want to use public land, you just want to see what's in your yard, you can go ahead and put it up on your garden, on your bird feeder. Game cameras tend to take a lot of really cool photos of birds while they're in flight. So you get a lot of these really neat photos. You could capture some stuff that is coming into your feeder that you never knew about. Like I said, even in a small yard in the suburbs, you'd be really surprised the range of wildlife that is trotting through your yard in the middle of the night. So you can set them up really anywhere. I even have friends who set them up in their living rooms to catch what their dogs are doing during the day when they're gone. So whatever you want to do. All right, so we have our spot, we have our photos going, so let's talk about how you check your game camera. First things first is you always want, like I said, to have more than one memory card available. You don't want any lag time in taking your photos. So you'll want to have the memory card that's in your camera, and then you want to bring one with you, especially if you don't have one of those viewing screens on the inside of your camera. You want to be able to just take out the full memory card, put in your new one, and have no lag time in your photographs. You want to disturb the area as little as possible when you're checking it. So the whole goal here is to monitor what wildlife is doing when nobody's looking. So we have a certain stink to us. We definitely have our own smell as humans. Even if you think you're being really quiet, you're probably not. And we're always causing some level of disturbance when we're out in the woods. So to encourage as much wildlife to behave as naturally as possible, you want to just cause as little disturbance as possible. So don't check your game camera more than once a week. Checking it once every 2 weeks is ideal, but it just depends. You definitely don't need to check it every day. Your memory card is going to hold hundreds, if not thousands of photos, so don't worry about that filling up. As long as you've done your job and getting brush out of the way, you can go ahead and leave it for a week to 2 weeks before you check it, and you're going to be a lot more likely that way to get a lot of really cool wildlife passing by. So you always want to check the battery as well, the battery level. Lithium-ion batteries tend to do a lot better in game cameras. They last a lot longer. They hold up during the weather a lot better than traditional alkaline batteries do. And you always want to check the battery level. So when you open up the game camera on the inside, there's going to be a reading on your battery level. Make sure you check that, because there's nothing more frustrating than setting your camera up, getting 2 really awesome photos, and then realizing the battery died the day after you set it up. So make sure you always bring extra batteries with you, and you switch them out if it starts to get low. Also keep in mind that even if you're using lithium-ion batteries, really, really cold weather tends to drain the batteries a lot faster than, nicer weather. So if you're putting it out during the winter or really cold nights, just make sure you're keeping an eye on that battery level. I can post some photos later that are really good examples of game camera photos. So let's talk about some of the photos you could be getting. So if you happen to get some photos and you are like, what in the world is that animal? And you have no idea what it is, your friendly local wildlife biologist is happy to help you out. You can always email DEC and send us your videos and your photos. Even if you know what it is and you just think it's really cool or really interesting behavior, we love that stuff. This is what we do for a living, and this is what I do in my spare time also. So we love getting photos and input from people, especially if you live up north in the Adirondacks and you're getting photos of moose. We would love those to be submitted. If you just have questions about the animal that's in your yard or the animals in your photos, feel free to send those to us via email. We really like the ones that are a little bit hard to tell what it is. It's like a puzzle for us, and we love trying to figure that out. And we're here to help, so we would love to chat about your photos. I just saw a question pop up, have you found Sasquatch yet? We have not, and there are thousands of photos on thousands of game cameras out in the woods in New York, and we have yet to get a Sasquatch photo, but I'm still waiting for it. We've had some that are close, maybe, but we've never seen one. So, game cameras are a really, really great way to learn about the wildlife that's in your yard, connect with nature, especially while we are going through this difficult time and we're all socially distancing and we're staying home and getting to know our own properties really, really well. So they're not only a really great tool for hunting season, they're a really great way for you to observe wildlife, learn about what's around you, and they're an awesome tool for teaching kids about wildlife, about ecology, about the environment, and about wildlife behavior. If you get cool photos of a possum on your game camera, you can teach your kids all about the life cycle of possums and how they're the best tick eaters out there, which is really important in the Capital District. So I hope you learned something today, and I hope this was fun, and I hope you guys enjoy this. It's a really great family activity, like I said. My 3-year-old daughter loves looking at our game camera photos, and she talks about the deer and the fox all the time now. So again, I want to wish everyone a really happy Earth Day. I want to wish DEC a happy anniversary. And I will stick around and take some questions if anyone has them. Oh, also, I will be doing another live session tomorrow, 9 o'clock, same time, same place. I am also the Becoming an Outdoorswoman coordinator for New York State. So I'll be talking a little bit about the BOW program, how you can get involved in it, what it does. And we'll be doing a really quick primer on getting ready for turkey hunting season. So please join me tomorrow. Friday morning, you can join us for learning about tides. So that'll be a really cool session as well. Great, so it doesn't look like we have too many questions yet. I will still stick around and see. Look, I see, did I go to ESF? I did not go to ESF. I actually went to SUNY Oswego. I have a zoology major. I used to be a zookeeper, and then I became a wildlife biologist. So there's that. So yeah, if you guys, you'd be really surprised. You know, I live in Knox, like I said. We've gotten photos here of red fox, fisher. We've had bald eagles, which is crazy because the back of my property back here butts up against the Bozenkill Creek. And our latest photos from about a month ago, we have a breeding pair of bald eagles and a juvenile bald eagle. So that's really cool. It is a creek that dries up pretty much in the late summer. So it seems like they seasonally come here to nest maybe. So that's really surprising. Even I was surprised by that. We've gotten black bears. We've gotten some really big bobcats, which is really fun to see. A lot of deer, obviously. So, you know, there's a lot that is in your yard that you never knew about, and it's really, really cool. Here's a question. What is the most interesting critter you've ever caught on a game camera? I will say you get a lot of funny pictures of people. There's a lot of really great pictures of me out there. A lot of people walk by and don't know they're on the camera, and those are pretty funny to watch. I would say the coolest photos so far that I've seen, well, I used to work out west. I used to work right near Yellowstone National Park, and I got photos of a mountain lion. I've gotten grizzly bears out there. In New York, the coolest photos I've gotten, I'd have to say, are this really big tom bobcat that we have on our property here. He's really big. He's really healthy. We see him cruising around a lot on the camera, and he tends to be going toward our food plot that we have for deer, which is a lot of clover. And we think that he's going in there a lot to go after the small mammals that are feeding in that food plot, which is really, really cool because it's kind of a full cycle. We're seeing not only the herbivores out there eating, but we're seeing the whole food chain going in there and benefiting from that really natural food plot that we have. So it's super fun to watch, and it's really encouraging to see that it's working. So I'll stick around for another second to see if there are any questions. Do you see a lot of change in the animals captured on cameras as the season change? That's a super good question. And actually, yeah, sometimes you do. The deer are fun to see because you can watch the bucks, you can watch their antlers grow. So you'll see them as little button bucks early in the season, like right now, they'll start getting their little nubs that start growing. And then as it gets closer and closer to hunting season and toward the fall, you'll see those turn into like full antlers, which is really interesting. You do catch a lot of animals mid shedding, which is really cool to see. And that's actually a lot of the questions that we get as biologists. People will see deer with their transitional coats coming in, or bears with their patchy transitional coats. And so they can look a little rough around the edges during transitional seasons, so like fall and spring. So you do see that change. It's really fun to set game cameras up in the springtime because everything has babies. And so you could see fox with their kits, coyotes with their pups, bears with cubs, deer with fawn, and then you can watch those grow throughout the season. So that's really, really fun to watch too. That's a great change. And that is a really, really awesome teaching tool for your kids. You can teach them all about the life cycle of all this wildlife. It's really, really fun. So let's see some other questions. Do I have a preference for stills or video? You know, it totally depends. Like I said, the videos can be a little tedious to scroll through. What I like to do is set it up for still photographs. And if there's a lot of really cool action in a certain spot, or I'm getting the same animal repeatedly, then I'll switch it over to video, because you know you have a guarantee that you're going to get something cool. You have a lot of activity there, and then you can kind of expand on that. So you can kind of do your scouting with the still video, the still photos, and then transition to the videos once you know you're going to be getting something really cool. Someone asked where I'm broadcasting from. I live in Knox. I'm not going to give my address because that's creepy. But I live in Knox, right up on the hill just outside of Altamont. So setting up a camera near water and having the water constantly triggering it. That's a great question. So I have made that mistake before. I've set it up on the edge of a lake and the waves triggered it. And I think I had like 6,000 photos and it was really annoying to go through. I think I had one animal through 6,000 photos. So yeah, you do want to be really careful. Usually if you do that, if it's like a slower moving water body, it'll be okay. If it's really something that's really wavy, you want to make sure that it's not filling the shot and it won't trigger it. A good thing to do with that is if you are just setting up the camera for the first time and you think there's something that might trigger it, like a body of water, check it after a few days and see how it's doing. And then if you realize that that water is triggering it a lot, maybe move it, reposition it so that you're not getting those photos, because that can be pretty annoying. But if you have like a creek or a slower flowing river, you should be pretty safe with it. Cameras will also, I didn't mention this, this is something you can look into when you're shopping for cameras. They allow you to adjust the sensor sensitivity. So you could also try that if you are trying to set it up on moving water. You can make the trigger a little less sensitive so that not every motion is going to be setting it off. It'll be just the bigger motion of like wildlife going through. So let's see if I have any other questions. So there are some people talking about makes and models of cameras. Honestly, there are so many cameras out there. Just like with legit camera equipment, there's a whole range. It totally depends on what you're looking for. I'm not going to recommend a really specific model or a brand of camera, but I can say that if you are just trying to get into this and you're just trying to learn a little bit more about wildlife, don't go out there and spend a fortune. You can buy a lower model camera that has really good reviews, and I guarantee you'll still be happy with your results. Like I said, it doesn't really matter what it looks like, what your camo is. You can even get one and like paint a camo design on it or put a camo sticker on it. So, you know, like I said, you just want to go through the features, what the camera does. If you're interested in video, if you're interested in super high quality photos, if you want one with a viewing screen on the inside, if you want one with a really big field of view, just look at all that stuff and then go from there. Someone asked if there's game cameras which live stream. So yes, there are game cameras that will text message you or email you while they're getting the photos, and that's really cool to watch. Again, that just totally depends on your preferences. Those ones are significantly more pricey, but it is really cool to see. So yes, and there's another question, do you have it sent to your phone? You could have them sent to your phone, yeah. So that's great. I mean, you could be sitting on your couch and out watching wildlife. But I mean, I recommend going outside and watching wildlife too. It's a little more fun. But it is a really cool feature to have. Oh. So thanks everyone. I hope you have a great day. And everyone, please stay healthy and stay safe. Have a great day.